that commented on how lowbrow Night City culture is.
That's fine.
The result is that there's a fetishization of trans people at every turn in a game
Wait,
with only one very minor...
fetishization of what? Fetishization of trans people? What do you mean? What? Hold on. What does she mean by fetishization of trans people? Does it mean that she showcases trans people in seductive poses? What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? You tell me what is wrong. We over-sexualize men. We over-sexualize women. We can't over-sexualize transition people? Why can't we do that? I thought we want equality. Why can't we over-sexualize them as well? This is like a Ubisoft game. Not gonna lie. Like, the bugs I'm seeing here are Ubisoft-esque. Which is, for, you know, CD Projekt Red, that's pretty bad. This is Bethesda-like, Ubisoft-esque. Ugh. How are you guys been? You guys been good? We got a lot to talk about. There has been drama, but not really. But kinda. Gamer drama, so it's not real drama, but you know what I mean. Real to us, true gamers. So as you all know, Cyberpunk is out, right? And a bunch of the reviews are very positive. Very positive. And then there's a couple reviews that are still positive of the game. They're still praising the game, but it has faults. But the dislike to like ratio in those videos is ridiculous. And what boggles my mind is today, it is currently the 9th of December. So the game is not out yet. It will release. Actually, I think it might be released now. I'm not sure. Let me check Steam. I think it's released now, but it wasn't released earlier. Regardless, a bunch of the people didn't play the game, and in the comments of the videos, I have them pulled up right here. Especially this one, the GameStop one, the GameSpot. Oh, they're turned off. Fuck no! Oh, man. I had this whole thing planned. I mean, look at this. Look at the like to dislike. Look at this. Look at the like to dislike. These people, 17,000, who disliked the video. The review was not too praising the game, but it wasn't shooting it down. There were some stupid pointers. We'll watch the video. We will watch the video. And for the most part, it's positive. They say the story kind of sucks. The side quests are great, they say. And then they point out, like, different stuff, like the ads in the game are stupid. They're kind of sexist or whatever. And there's also a couple contradictions in the review, which, you know, isn't good. It's not good. But there are certain flaws that she does point out. It's like, hey, the story is not, like, I made decisions, and at the end, they didn't really matter. Like, she makes those points, and it's not a bad point to make. I mean, knowing CD Projekt Red, you know, they usually... I mean, again, I haven't played the game, and neither have all of these people, the 17,000 or whatever. They have not played the game either, but they already got their minds decided. They're fanboying for the game that they have not even played yet. And the lady makes some good points. Some good points. Now, does she... let's just watch the video. Let's watch the video, okay?
In Cyberpunk 2077, there's a series of side quests that has you tracking down...
Also, what is up with the start of this review? Usually, GameSpot does like an intro, you know, and then they do like their graphic, and then they jump into the review. We're gonna pull up a screen, a notepad. Cyberpunk 2077 reviews. Pros, cons. Okay.
Rogue taxis run by faulty AI. You have to talk one of the taxis down from suicide as it contemplates driving off a bridge, while another needs to be brute forced into behaving, and a third is an obvious reference to a famous video game AI that manipulates you as you chase it down. It's one of the best minor quest lines in the game, an intriguing and surprisingly human sub-story that rewards you with lots of much-needed cash to boot.
Okay.
It's also an excuse to send you to every corner of Night
Side quest,
City,
great.
and it's a clever introduction to all the areas you haven't yet been. I spent a lot of my playtime following side quest threads like this one, excited about the premise and hoping to find something as interesting or fun or rewarding at the end. In many cases I did, but now after finishing the main story, I can't see how most of those activities fit into the overall narrative or the character I was playing.
Apparently the main story
doesn't even gel with itself.
Main story does not gel, okay?
Any other, just bigger.
No, chica. Just idiots.
I don't know what that means in her words,
Cyberpunk
but it doesn't gel.
2077 draws
We'll find out
from
later.
Source material with everything from the world itself to the life and death of Johnny Silverhand coming from its pen and paper inspiration. But unlike in a tabletop RPG,
by the way, I'm gonna see if I remember some of the comments. People in the comments were saying that she spoiled something in here. And spoiler alert, it isn't really spoiler alert because it's kind of the first thing that happens in the game. Multiple reviewers have talked about this, including Young Yeah. Johnny Silverhands, spoiler alert, he dies. He's dead. He's like the ghost from The Sixth Sense, okay? He's like, I don't know if he's like a spirit or like a virus in your system or something, but he like follows you around and he's not alive, right? But he's like a famous musician, dead, he's killed, whatever. So people in the review were complaining that she spoiled the story or a big fact. Again, that's not a spoiler. This is like one of the first things that happens in the game. Other reviewers have talked about this. Not IGN has not talked about it, but Young Yeah has talked about it. I think another person has talked about it. Regardless, people are freaking out about the spoiler. Not a big spoiler. If it's the first thing that happens in the game, probably not a big deal, okay? So people need to get over that. And we'll say what she does bad, okay? Her bad. Okay. Does that make sense? Her bad points. Okay. So far, I'm gonna put asterisks. Spoiler. I spelled spoiler wrong because I'm stupid. There we go. Again, asterisk, because again, one of the first things that happened in the game, other reviewers have talked about it, people in the comments were freaking out about it, and then they downvoted her. That's a good portion of the comments were because of this. Later on, we'll see what... she makes some stupid points, but overall, I didn't think the review was that bad. And I can't believe I'm defending a GameSpot review. This is what I have to do, you know? But fanboys really get to me, and it's like, dude, you haven't even played the game, dog.
Your own creation in Cyberpunk 2077. You're playing V, and this is V's story, not yours. I often felt like I was role-playing two different characters. One V for the side quests, and one more limited V for the main story.
Okay, that's a good point. How is that a bad point? Let's say you're watching a review, and the game is inconsistent with how it tells the stories. Now, keep in mind, we have not played the game yet. So I'm going to trust her opinion on this. I'm just going to trust her opinions. Cons. Main story. Oh, God. And side quests don't match up with roleplay. There we go.
That's mostly because the main story puts you on a clock. It's not literally on a timer, but it is very urgent in the way that RPG stories often are, and it has the same pitfalls.
Oh, hold on. The way RPG stories often are. So it's not an actual clock. So is she talking about like, oh, this is like a big event that's gonna go down and you gotta stop it? Because that's what every RPG does. This is not a con, but she labels it as a con. So rushes through story. Alright.
As a result. It feels weird to do throwaway fun stuff when you have a serious, ever-present threat to attend to, and in V's case, it just doesn't make sense to dally.
But that is every game, though. Every RPG has that thing going on. It's like, I mean, look at The Witcher 3. There's the wild hunt on an apocalyptic winter storm of nights or whatever is descending upon, what is that? Not Rivia. Where's where Geralt's from? You know, not Tamriel. That's Oblivion. Whatever. I can't believe I forgot what the fucking world of The Witcher is called. I'm just gonna say Nilfgaard. No, Nilfgaard is the Empire. I don't know. again, okay, now this bugs me. Now I don't feel like I've played the game, but I have 180 hours sunk into that fucking game. What is the world of Witcher called? World of Witcher called. What is it called? The continent? Really? I don't know. Anyways, the Wild Hunt's drooping down on people. And what does Geralt do? He does side quests. That's part of a game. That's part of an RPG. This, for her to say this is an issue, is not an issue. I don't even know how to phrase. I mean, rushes through story slash doesn't. God, I want to say doesn't do side quests. Rushes through story slash takes it too personal. Too personal, I guess. Or too realistic. Takes it too realistic. We're going to save the personal for later.
You have more freedom to play the character you really want to during side activities, but
Right.
main story V has clearly defined priorities.
Of course,
It's
like
first
every
place or
game.
no place, Dex. Cost
You
isn't
should
a
know
factor.
this. You're a game reviewer.
Classic. I'd expect nothing
Watch,
less.
I'm gonna
from
get like once I post this into a YouTube video, I'm gonna get like a copyright strike from GameSpot or like harassment or something.
eager, supple youth. Respect.
I often couldn't find the character I'd been developing via side quests when I returned to the main plot. Not in how I'd
Right,
been shaping
usually
her
they
personality
don't.
as she reacted to events, nor in the
Unless
hacker
it's a
I
big
built as
side
she was
quest.
forced into more traditional boss fights.
And that, hold on, that kind of sucks. She made a good point there. She's like, hey, I had a path picked, but the main story made me go, like she was a hacker or whatever. Hold on, let's listen to this.
Respect.
I often couldn't find the character I'd been developing via side quests when I returned to the main plot. Not in how I'd been shaping her personality as she reacted to events, nor in the hacker I built as she was forced into more traditional boss fights.
Okay. So, cons, game forces you to abandon certain play styles that the player developed. I think that's bad. I think that's actually a pretty good con she points out. If you're making a role-playing game and you're building your character as, how she mentioned, a hacker, and then the game, just because it's how it's made, forces you to go into a gunfight for a certain boss and doesn't give you the alternative. Like this game builds itself on like, hey, we offer you a lot of freedom the way you want to play. It's a role-playing game. This is how you should do it. But then it forces you into a certain thing, into a certain path. That's bad. If that's true, which, you know, seems like a pretty weird thing to be lying about, you know, that's kind of bad on CD Projekt Red's part. Again, it was different with Geralt of Rivia. Like he's a straight up Witcher. You can't really role play, you know, as somebody else. You're Geralt, okay? But in this game, it's, you know, I mean, they make the exceptions. Like, yeah, you're V, but you can customize your character. I mean, it's definitely not as personalized. I mean, it's definitely a lot more personalized. Sorry, it's a lot more personalized than The Witcher was. So if you're offering that freedom to players, and then give them the ability to pick certain skills, then have them beat the game the way they want. It may be hard to program, but again, they took like 7 years developing this game. You could have easily done like, all right, here's a boss. Can you hack him and defeat him like that? That'd be kind of cool, you know?
I knew from the outset that I wanted to play as a hacker, so I sped through the character creator, gave my V points in intellect and cool for hacking and stealth respectively, and started the game. I had
Right.
picked the nomad life path out of the 3 total options because it was the only
playing
one
as a
that
hacker.
positioned V as an outsider to Night City. I figured that I didn't know Night City yet as a newcomer to the game, so why should V? From what I can tell, that life path choice didn't affect more than the way the game starts and some dialogue options throughout, and possibly some minor side quests.
Right, this is also a thing. Actually, I've heard from multiple reviewers. The starting path, which is, I mean, this is a thing for most games. The starting path does not have much influence on the game. Yang Yam mentioned that in about an hour, the paths converge, which is actually what I heard how long the tutorial is. So actually, each path is just a tutorial. And again, there's certain decisions, but I mean, the way how everyone's described it, the decisions don't seem to make that big of a deal. And I don't know. I feel like, again, they could have made something more tangible there. Again, I haven't played the game, but neither have these people who have very strong opinions about it. Again, I don't have very strong opinions, but we're logically going through the steps and motions of what this review was about and pointing out the flaws. Okay? Before we decided whether it's a positive or a negative. I'm probably gonna go
Now that I've finished the story, I'm much more curious about the corpo life path in which V used to work as an antagonist corporation Arasaka, and how that fits into what I played. Cyberware in general is not cheap.
Okay,
On top of that, an early story mission is gated by...
How is that bad? That's not necessarily a bad thing. Oh, these upgrades are not cheap. Well, they shouldn't be cheap. That's the whole point of the game, dog.
By a significant sum of money, so I had to do a lot of grinding before I could afford a proper cyber deck.
Okay, so complains about grind. Again, this is an RPG, so I'm assuming the grind is not really a grind. It's more of like, hey, if you do side quests, you should be fine. Complains about grind. I'm just gonna write not really a problem. I mean, maybe it is. What if it's just an awful grind? What if it is just an awful? What if she's completely right? Grind in an RPG? What are you talking? Like, I don't know. Grinds in RPGs really don't exist too much. You just kind of do stuff and then you get rewarded. Like, I've never been frustrated with any RPG, Witcher or Elder Scrolls, at all. Even if it takes me, whatever, 60 hours, usually I'm having a blast playing it. A grind usually means something repetitive. And what she describes is, well, to get past the grind, if you want to make money, you got to do side quests, right? And she praises the side quests in the beginning. So all she had to do is do side quests. That's not a grind. A grind is usually very negative and you do repetitive things over and over again just to get something medial. This seems like an actually worthwhile, like, fun mechanic. You gotta save up to advance. Oh, what's wrong with that?
That made my quick hacks truly effective. Until then, I felt like I had to use guns a lot more than I wanted to, which didn't fit with how I initially built my character.
Okay, that's a valid point. That's a valid point. If the game offers you to either become a hacker or, you know, play the game, you know, guns blazing, and if you decide to go the hacker path, I think the game should allow you earlier on to do that. And apparently how she's describing it is it only lets you do it later. Lack of freedom with choices in beginning. I'm going to write that. And again, this might not be accurate at all. Because I've not played it. But again, neither of these people. I'm going to keep repeating this throughout my review of the review.
I didn't mind the guns overall, though. While it's not on par with dedicated first-person shooters, the gunplay is decent. It's a little clunky even after tweaking my sensitivity settings, but the aim assist does the heavy lifting.
Aim assist. You catch that? Aim assist. She's playing on what? She's playing on a PC. And she has aim assist on. This is just... Really? Aim assist on PC? Question mark, question mark, question mark? I feel like that would just fuck you up. I feel like that would literally just screw you up. On a console, that makes perfect sense because you can't get the pinpoint stuff. On a PC, man, I have never heard anybody use aim assist on PC. Oh man, yeah, I don't know. That's yeah. I mean, it's her bad. It's definitely not part of the like. Yeah, I'm as you can see, I'm a little speechless at that. I am a little speechless.
Once I got a good cyber deck and equipped better quick hacks, combat really picked up for me. I had a quick hack that reset an enemy's optics. Because pretty much everyone in Night City has cyberware in place of organic eyes, I used a quick hack that reset an enemy's optics and temporarily blinded them, which allowed me to sneak past. I was able to shut off entire camera systems easily and set turrets to friendly mode so they wouldn't shoot me on sight. I approached most encounters...
So there's still freedom in combat. Freedom in combat. parentheses, after leveling. Which is fine. A bunch of games do this. I don't have a problem with this at all. So maybe this thing, lack of freedom with choice at the beginning. I don't know. This thing and this thing kind of contradict each other. Yeah, see, I'm kind of torn. I'm honestly kind of torn on this. Because they kind of, I'm sure CD Projekt Red wanted to make you feel kind of limited at the beginning. Obviously, and the more you progress, the better you get. See, that's tricky. You know what? I'm going to delete this. Lack of freedom with choice at the beginning. That's a stupid point. Obviously, in every game, you're going to have lack of freedom in the beginning. I'm sorry I wrote that down.
Like a puzzle. I'd hack into camera systems to see how many enemies I'm dealing with. Then I'd figure out who to distract and in which direction so I could move from room to room undetected. If that didn't work, I at least knew I could jam their weapons or shock their systems from afar. When I found my rhythm and found the cache, I really enjoyed quick hacking as an alternative approach to combat, and it was always satisfying to get in.
What if you can rob people like in Grand Theft Auto? Like, does that work in this game? That'd be dope.
Money off some computers and get out without being spotted. Because I was so focused on this aspect of my character and saving money to invest in it, I didn't end up spending much time on other approaches. I got the Mantis Blades, which are cyberware
let's hear that.
Combat, and it was always satisfying to get in, steal a bunch of money off some computers, and get out without being spotted. Because I was so focused on this aspect of my character and saving money to invest in it,
Okay, saving money to invest in the character. Okay.
Didn't end up spending much time on other approaches. I got the Mantis Blades, which are cyberware swords that spring out of your arms, so late in the game that I barely used them. Other cyberware upgrades, like a leg modification that gives you a double jump, were so expensive that I'd have to opt to take side jobs just to afford them.
Alright, that's the whole point of the game, though. That's the whole point of the game! Again, complains about the grind. That's the whole... Like, you do side quests, like, that's how you get powerful in an RPG! You do side quests! That's the whole point! What? What? Like, oh, I didn't like it because, like, it's weird because she says she loves side quests. The side quests are great, and she's like, well, it put me in a position where I needed to do side quests to, to get the skills I wanted. Well, no fucking shit, Sherlock. Like, what do you expect?
This becomes easier later in the game when those gigs have bigger payouts. In fact, most nice things in Night City...
Also, look at this. Look at this. Let's be honest. CD Projekt Red. What is this? What is this? Is this an This is an inventory. This is how your inventory looks like. Yo, man, this is... I am reviewing the game now. Inventory. Clunky. Parentheses, clunky. I mean, look at this. This is just messy. There was complaints about the Witcher inventory being bad, and this is a clusterfuck. This is RGB, mess. Yeah, this just looks bad. No inventory should look like this. Muy mal.
Are prohibitively expensive, and I found that money was often the only obstacle when it came.
I mean, this is like The Witcher, but worse. How could you get worse than The Witcher? This is crossing into, like, Arma territory for inventory. Like,
to progression. Granted, I was playing Cyberpunk on a tight deadline, so I couldn't spend much time doing odd jobs. But there is...
Okay, this is a stupid reason. Complains about deadline for work. And then trashes game as a result. It's like, yeah, I needed to beat the game quickly, but the game was too long. Really?
There's a ridiculous amount of stuff to buy and seemingly endless money-making jobs to take on. There's even a whole section in your quest journal dedicated to all the cars people have offered to sell you. Though you start the game with a car, and I got multiple free vehicles for completing side quests, so I never bought a car and couldn't find a reason to. That's emblematic of the world of Cyberpunk 2077. It is so full of things to buy, to do, to see, and yet so much of it doesn't feel essential. There's even an entire crafting and item upgrade menu that I never actually needed to use, given...
Okay. Bad point by her. There was a crafting mechanic. So she's complaining about not having enough money to buy good guns. And then she's complaining that she never used the crafting mechanic because she would pick up guns that were better. But then again, you don't know. A bunch of stuff in games, when it comes to crafting, She only played the game for a week. Crafting, usually you discover to be better later on once you discover better components. So, I'm just gonna write crafting nonsense.
And that I was regularly looting better gear and items off my numerous enemies. At least in my playthrough, I had no reason to engage with these systems at all. Night
Okay, well, if
City
you're playing
is
harder
beautiful
difficulty, you probably
and
need to do.
vile. The architecture is often stunning, and some of my favorite sections of the game were
Okay.
when I drove from one district to the
Beautiful
next,
game.
radio turned up, taking in all the neon lights and monolithic mega buildings piercing the sky. Then I get out of the car and hear one of the oft-repeated advertisements blaring out onto the street and quickly snap out of the reverie of driving. There's one ad that's just a man making a long, exaggerated orgasm sound that tended to pierce through any conversation I was having.
Okay. The fact that she's pointing this out in a review is a little stupid. Why are you pointing out an in-game ad for the in-game world? This is like if I was walking through the world of Witcher, and then I don't know, one of like, you know, the prostitutes outside of a pleasure palace or whatever, like started hitting on me, and I was like, oh my goodness, how could you? Like, really? What in-game ads are bad? Question mark, exclamation point? What? That's part of the world building. People should then complain about GTA's radio... Dude, GTA's radio stations is what makes GTA great for me, dude. I mean, this is actually a funny ad. This is a funny ad. The fact that she has a problem with this ad... Come on. She didn't need to pick on this. She didn't need to pick... And now I'm picking on her for being too long on this, and I'm dragging this on too. Oh my god.
10% of recommended daily volume.
The ads are one of many...
I mean, look at this ad. Okay. Bottoms up, and this man's about to eat some booty. Come on. This is some shit you would see in GTA. This is not bad. Is it tasteless? Absolutely. Is it tasteless? Absolutely. But it's part of the world building. Like, what's... I've never gone around in a video game and looked at an ad and been like, oh my goodness. I am insulted. Could you, again, like, you're going around The Witcher, you see a flyer on the wall, and it's like, oh, get your dick enhancing potion, and it's like, oh my god. Like, what? Probably that tasteless, probably tasted a lot worse for that guy. Or a lot better, I don't know. I don't know, man.
Many aesthetic choices in Cyberpunk 2077
Depends on what she had before.
that are grating with
early in
no
the day.
real point. There's one ad in particular that was the topic of much discussion pre-release.
All right, discussion pre-release. I have never heard about any drama regarding an in-game ad in Cyberpunk 2077 until I saw this review.
Features a feminine person with a giant, exaggerated, veiny erection in their leotard.
Okay.
And advertises a drink called Chromanticore with the tagline.
Okay, so she's got a big dong, and that's a woman, I'm assuming, right? What's wrong with that? I thought we're trying to be progressive here. What's wrong with a woman with a dick? I thought that's good. I thought this is good. I thought this is what people wanted. You got male, female, and then you know, the in-betweens. You know, the multi-gendered. You know, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But now she has a problem with an ad featuring, like, they get hard too. They get turned on. Do transgender people don't get turned on? They absolutely do. And this drink helps you get a raging one. Like, how is this a problem?
Line, mix it up. It is everywhere. And while the purpose of it may be to show what a sex-obsessed, superficial, exploitative...
What about non-binary? Yeah, that's totally fine. If they have that in the game, that's fine. I'm sure non-binary people get hard too. If, you know, they happen to have a penis. Like, what's wrong with that? I don't see any problem. That's good. That's moving forward. That's progressive. I don't know, dude.
Night City is, there's nothing in the main story or any of the side quests I did that gives it even that much context. I found just one message on one of the many computers I logged into that...
Squirt, what does it say? Squirt Acquisitor 7000. It ain't the gun that squirts. Come on, that's actually funny. Kinda. It's tasteless. But it's kind of funny, you know? It's like a B-level comedian's joke. There's nothing wrong with this ad. When people, like, this is what, like, this lady, like, I'm sure, you know, she's, you know, feminist, God bless them, but, like, they overreact way too much. It's like, don't over-sexualize women, but let women have their freedom. What if women want to be over-sexualized? There's women who love to be over-sexualized. But then that's bad? Like, you can't be contradictory to yourselves. Oh, my God. If you want women to have all the freedoms they want, let them be free. And if they want to sexualize themselves, let them sexualize themselves. Nothing wrong with that. But apparently she has a problem with that. I don't know.
That commented on how lowbrow Night City culture is.
That's fine.
The result is that there's a fetishization of trans people at every turn in a game
Wait,
with only one very minor...
fetishization of what? Fetishization of trans people? What do you mean? What? Hold on. What does she mean by fetishization of trans people? Does it mean that she showcases trans people in seductive poses? What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? You tell me what is wrong. We over-sexualize men. We over-sexualize women. We can't over-sexualize transition people? Why can't we do that? I thought we want equality. Why can't we over-sexualize them as well? Oh, my God. Bad political take. Parentheses, overreaction. Here you go. Yeah, they wear all skimpy clothes. Yeah, and again, no problem with people wearing skimpy clothes. Or women wearing skimpy clothes. I have no problem with that. But it's like, again, a lot of, like, feminists, and, like, I don't want to be, like, a fucking, like, hardcore right-winger here, but, like, a lot of them, when you're arguing for women's rights and freedoms, have them have their freedoms, but then don't complain when they themselves over-sexualize it. I don't know. It's like, oh, you're being degrading towards women. It's like, no, what? What? Oh, my God. Right, confuse the kids. Dude, fuck the kids. Well, don't fuck the kids. Please. Wrong sentence right there came out of my mouth. The kids don't matter. This is not a game for kids, you know? And also, the kids are gonna find out eventually. You know, what's the problem? Kids see murder all the time on TV. What happens if they see sex? Are they gonna explode all of a sudden? We show kids murder on screens all the time, in video games, in modern culture. But if we show kids a sex scene in a movie or in a video game, oh no. Oh, the world's gonna collapse. Really? Really, people? God. Make love, not war, people. Make love, not war.
Inner trans character that I found, at least, and with a very limited and binary character creator, not a lot of ways to play as an authentically trans character yourself.
Okay, what's authentically trans? Like what?
Not a lot of ways to play as an authentically trans character.
You can change your penis size, big pubes, genitals. You can change your genitals. What other options? I don't know. I mean, maybe this shows my ignorance, but I don't know what other options I would want in a genital customizer. You know? Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yourself. I found and read tons of text logs, scoured people's private messages, listened to radio and TV programs and random NPC conversations, and I struggled to find justifications for many of Cyberpunk's more questionable and superficial world-building choices. It's
world-building choices, so the ads she mentioned earlier. So she was looking in depth into story, weapons, story logs, books, anything to explain why CD Projekt Red decided to make an ad that has a woman with a raging boner. That's the research she did. Why is that what? Oh, that's what she's worried about? That's what she's worried about? Oh, yeah.
It's a world where megacorporations rule people's lives, where inequality runs rampant, and where violence is a fact of life. but I found very little in the main story, side quests, or environment that explores any of these topics. It's a tough world and a hard one to exist in by design.
Right, good.
But with no apparent purpose and context to that experience, all you're left with is the unpleasantness. There are instances where the game does...
if she's worried about context, I'm sure there's like lore things you can find online, you know, that like explain the society that it has evolved, you know, to get to this degenerative state or whatever. It's not even degenerative. Like, it doesn't seem too bad. Minus the inequality that corporations have over people. That's the only bad part. People being over-sexualized I have no problem with.
More with an initially superficial choice, but these threads are often dropped quickly. For example, in the pen and paper game, the Voodoo Boys were a group of mostly white men who used quote-unquote voodoo stereotypes to scare people. In 2077, they're a group of Haitian people displaced by natural disaster, by my interpretation, one caused by climate change. At one point in the main story, you can ask a Voodoo Boys member what the name's about, given they don't actually do anything associated with quote-unquote voodoo. He tells you to ask the people that call them that, and refuses to tell you what they call themselves. There's a seed of an interesting idea here. The labels given to the other, diaspora, the trauma of losing your home, but none of this is ever explored again in the main story as I played it, nor in any of the many side quests I played either. I didn't find another opportunity to interact with the Voodoo Boys at all.
But again, she's focusing on the titles too much. It's like if you're playing The Witcher and it's like, why are the Nilfgaardians called Nilfgaardians? It's like, why does that matter? Too much focus on minutia. There you go.
There's so much to cover that I can't possibly touch on everything, but my experience is that there's aspects of the game that feel lost in translation, invoking cultures that aren't adequately explored or contextualized. Characters in one side quest use the word ofrenda as if it means funeral, when it's actually a particular kind of altar primarily for Day of the Dead. It's unclear to me if this is a translation issue or an overall misunderstanding of Mexican customs, since you do put together an altar during the event that's being called...
Okay, so she still put an altar together? So you're still kind of doing what the ofrenda means. You're still... Okay.
The ofrenda. It's not that Cyberpunk always gets everything wrong in its incorporation of a variety of cultures and backgrounds, but that the world
she's like picking... I don't know, it's like... These aren't even like... If the game was like being like super like racist and stereotypical, yes, I can see that being a flaw. But it's like, she's like, they didn't get the culture exactly right how it's supposed to be. They might have mistranslated a word. And now I'm focusing 4 minutes of my review for this game on a couple of sections that the developers may have gotten wrong in terms of culture of in-game characters. For a review... I don't know if that matters. For a review that doesn't... Maybe a retrospective, you know how people like do a retrospective is like a year or multiple years after? That would be fine, but for a game review, focus on the game mechanics and the stuff. Don't focus on like, oh, you know, the cultural stigma in the game is a little troubling because they don't match the proper cultures properly. And, you know, it reflects so terribly in our culture. And it's like, what is game review? I mean, again... Yeah, they might have made a mistake here or there, but it's this again. They're not. It's not like they're overly caricatured like certain cultural groups. They definitely didn't do that at all. In fact, they embraced them, and they're like, oh, they might have gotten a translation wrong here and there, and she picks on that. What? That's probably an innocent mistake, and now they're being punished for it. I don't know.
So big and unruly that I never knew what I would find around any corner, or if I'd understand what the intent behind it was. I just grew to accept that whatever I did find, at least in terms of setting and world building, would likely be superficial. That's the case for the world overall and its background characters anyway. You meet a lot of people in Night City, many of whom die in your wake like you're some kind of curse, while others just call from time to time with a job for you to do. The few that don't die and have proper arcs make up V's friends and love interests, and these are the characters that rightfully stand out.
Right, the main characters usually do stand out in an RPG.
My favorite character, though, is Judy Alvarez, an earnest, hot-tempered, beautifully human character with the best arc in the game. She edits brain dances, which are kind of like VR movies where you can acutely feel the recorder's emotions, and they're often used for porn.
Absolutely.
Judy is
Absolutely.
an incredibly gifted BD editor, and she's also a member of the Moxes, a gang of sex workers that look out for one another. Judy's story unfolds thanks to her fierce and endless desire to fight for her friends, which leads to some of the most interesting quests in the game, and some of the only ones that give you the ability to properly fight back against such a bleak, exploitative world. The final section of Judy's arc was my favorite in the entire game. It's a quiet respite from the lights and sounds of the city, an intimate look into the soul of her character, and provided you meet the requirements, contains the only sex scene I saw that didn't make me want to die on the spot.
Unlike you.
That's a subjective thing. She enjoyed this sex scene, but the other sex scenes were just a little too much. This one, it was very passionate. There was love. Yeah. That's a very subjective scene. You know, she bonded with that character. She found that character likable. What if somebody else finds a different character likable? You know, the relationship could be totally different. What if I'm playing the game and I'm like, this woman sucks. She's annoying, you know? But then this lady is great, you know? Like, that's just a very subjective remark she had. This is a video game review, and she puts too much of her own personal feelings into it. She personalizes the review too much. She makes it about her. I want to say she makes it more about herself than she makes it more about the game. You know, she's like, I didn't like this. I'm offended by this. And it's like, does the game work? Are there bugs? You know, are the quests good? And she said the quests were great, except the main quests, which I also heard were pretty, were all right. But I heard the side quests are great, which is what CD Projekt Red is known for. Like,
he treated his friends badly and women worse. He's the kind of guy who gets away with far too much, and based on what I learned about him throughout the game, I'm surprised he died at the hands of Adam Smasher rather than by choking on his own vomit.
Oh, by the way, there's another spoiler she throws in. She didn't need to throw in the who kills him. Again, he gets killed in the beginning of the game. Other reviews have talked about it. Not a big deal. We know he's, like, not alive. He's, like, dead. But to say who killed him, that seems kind of spoilerish. And people were saying that there were spoilers. And like, it's a review. Don't mention character names and who kills who, in a review, please.
Or a bender. Reeves is somehow able to make all of this interesting and kind of charming rather than extremely off-putting. For the most part, Johnny is a well-written character in that I was always curious what he had to say and how he interpreted the situations we were in.
That's good.
I was never quite sure if his advice was any good or if his opinions had any merit, but I wanted to hear him out every time. It's Reeves' delivery of these lines, which often involve Johnny chastising you for something or other, that really sells the lovable jerk vibe that I would normally find overplayed. The push and pull of Johnny's opinions and your own adds a lot of color to even run-of-the-mill missions. At one point, I didn't heed Johnny's condescending warnings and accepted a deal from a character who ended up tricking me, which also resulted in a lot of people dying. Another time, I pursued a side quest because he practically begged me to do it, saying it was the most interesting thing
the fact that
in a long time.
Has influence on the game.
And it did end up being unlike anything else in the game.
On
the dynamic
the player.
is compelling and left me on my toes, always wondering if I should listen to Johnny or follow my initial instincts.
See, this is a good. What she talked about here, pretty good.
I'm not sure if there were necessarily any completely right or wrong choices in a lot of those missions, but Johnny's presence and the ambiguity it brings is supposed to have an effect on V's psyche for better or worse. It's a factor of the circumstances that put him in V's head in the first place. That Johnny could affect my decision-making as well as how I interpreted each interaction is a clever way to convey that. Aside from character highlights, side quests are far and away the best part of the game. Like the rogue taxi one I mentioned at the beginning of this review, there are
She once again says how great the side quests are, but then early in the review she was complaining that in order to afford upgrades, she needed to do side quests. This seems like a win-win. You get to do side quests, enjoy the game, and then level up your character. So that original point about, things being expensive is kind of mute.
Clever, interesting, goofy, and sad side quests that I really enjoyed. On a gameplay level, they often provide a nice change of pace from the more combat-focused main story. Sometimes you just talk to people, while a more involved one has you doing favors for Johnny since he's, technically dead. One especially intriguing side quest had me playing detective, investigating a mysterious break-in at the apartment of a Night City mayoral candidate. Mechanically, it's a simple open-world, use your ability to highlight clues gimmick, but what follows is a fascinating and kind of creepy look at Night City corruption, gaslighting,
Again,
and whether it's better to tell
we already
someone
got
the
this
truth
point.
if it means
Great
it could get
side
them
quest.
killed. Conversely, I also did a really silly quest that
Side
involved
quest,
a
yeah,
clown
there you go.
man with a grenade for a nose that had no point but was delightful in a weird
Clown man
way.
with a grenade. That's
Side
amazing.
quests
That's
amounted
hilarious.
to around 35 hours of
Why didn't she make that like a remark or something like, this is lowbrow? Like she was making a case about the ads, you know. A clown with a grenade for a nose. It's kind of stupid, you know. Just as stupid as that sex ad. But it's fun. It's a game. Get over it.
my total playtime, and they were what propelled me through. While not every one lands, there are some that feel essential in a way that very little else in the game does. These include Judy's story arc and the taxi excursion, as well as a much shorter story about a depressed man who lives in V's apartment building. Even on the tight review deadline, I kept finding myself seeking out just one more side quest before bed, just
There
because
you
I
go.
was
Again,
eager to
why
see
were
what I
you
would find.
complaining
All
about the
that said, when
grind
I
if you
finished
love
the
doing
game,
the
I
side
felt
quests?
empty.
What?
All the friends I had made, what I had learned about Johnny, the way I developed my V as a character, much of it didn't seem to matter. Making friends in a lonely, sad city doesn't affect the urgency of V's main quest, and it doesn't seem to affect her priorities related to it. Discovering a police-sponsored murder cover-up or the depths of corporate control of Night City life doesn't seem to change V's ambitions to be remembered as a legendary Night City merc. Falling in love didn't even give my V what she wanted. I don't quite understand the ending I got,
Wait,
but
give V what she wanted. Hold on. Give V what she wanted or give you what you... Like... I mean, this technically isn't the worst. So, okay, so this is the point she's trying to make. She's trying to say that the quests... This is a con probably for the game, actually. The side quests don't feel... I want to put, like, quotes, rewarding. Not in a reward sense, but in, like, the conclusion sense. Maybe different expectations. Expectations don't match, which I've kind of experienced. I'm sure everybody's kind of experienced this in, like, The Witcher or something, where you want to say a line or something, like your character dialogue, and... You think it's gonna come out one way, and the character just says completely something different, and then by the end of it all, it just kind of went down to the shit because you thought you were picking the good answers, but then how the character phrased it, it sounded wrong. Yeah, I understand where she's coming from with that. I don't think that's an attack on her. I saw when the comments were still on, people were picking her on this, like, oh well. This is how the side quests end. If you don't like it, whatever. Too bad. It's like, well, no, the side quests do need to be rewarding to a certain degree, and they need, like, there needs to be an emotional consistency. There you go. There needs to be emotional consistency throughout those quests. And if she says there isn't, you know, maybe there isn't. For some people, maybe there will be. I don't know. But knowing from past experiences on RPGs, and Witcher 3, also a great example, there's sometimes inconsistencies with how dialogue and stories play out.
But it made me sad. It didn't reflect the V I felt I developed, one who helped her friends and followed her curiosity. Worst of all, I have no idea what Cyberpunk 2077 is even trying to say. There's an overall theme of identity that's dashed by the dissonance between the V you actually play and the V you get in the end. Otherwise, I couldn't tell you what Cyberpunk is trying to do with its beautifully grotesque world. I got a lot out of the side quests and some of
What
the
do you
characters,
want it
but
to
I got
do?
nothing out of the overall story.
I mean, it's an experience.
It's all right,
I mean,
Mateo.
I don't know.
I was waiting for this one.
Trying to show corruption. I mean, you even talked about how, like, police corruption, government corruption, you know, helping people out, like... That's what it's trying to show you.
You have to watch out for negative energy fields.
Oh, and the bug.
It also bears a mention, Cyberpunk 2077 is phenomenally buggy.
I heard this from
Yes, V.
all of the reviewers.
Thank you.
Everyone said there's bugs.
I played a pre-release
And
build on PC.
a game
was
that is in
updated
development
during
for
the
7
review period,
years?
and there's a day one patch planned as
don't know.
well. But the
This
scale
is
of
some
technical
Bethesda
issues
action
is just
right here.
too large to reasonably expect immediate fixes.
I'm gonna put that under
I
the
encountered
cons.
some kind of bug on every mission I
Bethesda
went on.
action.
For more common, funnier ones like characters randomly T-posing. to
Great
several
game
complete
and
crashes.
just bugs.
I didn't notice much of an improvement after the update either. In a very late game, very important fight, the game froze on me not once but twice. I ended up taking a break out of frustration before attempting and finally succeeding the third time.
Okay, that's ridiculous. Dude.
These bugs, more
would
than
suck.
any game I've played in years, took me out of the experience.
This is like a Ubisoft game. Not gonna lie, like the bugs I'm seeing here are Ubisoft-esque, which is for CD Projekt Red. That's pretty bad. This is Bethesda-like, Ubisoft-esque. Ugh.
I was playing on a gaming laptop well above the minimum specs.
There you go. Another thing I saw earlier in the comments. People were complaining that she wasn't a real gamer because she plays on a gaming laptop, on a laptop. Dude, if your laptop can run Cyberpunk 2077 on what seems like pretty great graphics, seems like you don't have a bad laptop. I would put my money on it that she probably has a much better laptop than most people have desktops. I have a laptop that has a 2060 in the other room. My friends, most of my friends, my laptop beats their desktop, and people were just riling up. There was like a lot of comments just picking her for having a laptop. Like what? What they should have picked her on was what she mentioned earlier, was that she was playing with aim assist on. Yeah, that's insulting to PC gaming. But to play on a laptop, on a gaming laptop, that's not a problem. People need to chill their fucking bones. Bugs will be its downfall. Yeah, maybe. I could see a lot of people complaining maybe the length of the game. I could see that being the downfall. Because a lot of people love long games. And something they were waiting on for 7 years, and reports it being now 35 hours for the main story. 35 hours, dude? The Witcher was so much longer. 35 hours for this? I could see that being a bigger issue. Because the bugs, they can do updates. They can roll out updates. It'll be fixed in a month time. I bet my money on it. The bugs are going to be gone. But they can't really increase the story length until they start releasing DLCs. I think that's going to be the downfall. Is the size of the open world, one, and then the lack of main story length. I think that's going to be the main downfall.
Cyberpunk 2077, while another GameSpot player experienced the same severity and frequency of bugs, though no hard crashes, on an even higher-end desktop PC. Your mileage may vary, but in our experience, the bugs are obtrusive and substantial across the board, often forcing us to reload saves or exit the game entirely. It's really hard to get into a world you constantly have to leave. But then, it's hard to get into Cyberpunk 2077's world in general. So much of it is superficial set dressing, and there's so much happening all around you, like ads going off at all times, gunfights breaking out in the streets, texts coming in about cars you'll never buy, that a lot of the game feels superfluous. The side quests and the characters they showcase
the stuff you'll never buy. I mean, depends how you play the game. Other people are gonna do that stuff. I'm sure. Also depends what difficulty you play on. I know in The Witcher 3, again, I'm referencing The Witcher because obviously the same developer. In The Witcher 3, the potion mechanic, like the alchemy mechanic, I didn't really dabble with it too much apart from the main quest because I played on, I think, normal or hard. And for those game modes, for the difficulty setting, you don't really need to fuck with that mechanic too much. But on Death March, you need to fuck with that mechanic. Like, you're not going to win, you're not going to beat the game without using alchemy and potions. I think it may be the same case with Cyberpunk. I feel like if you're playing a harder difficulty, you might be forced to use crafting, the mechanics you didn't use, like stuff like that. I think, so for her to point that out, I think that's also a negative point. Dismisses game mechanics / features. Look at that.
Are the shining beacon through the neon-soaked bleakness of Night City, and they give you room to explore the best the core RPG mechanics have to offer. These are what carried me through an otherwise disappointing experience.
Okay, she gave it a 7. This is pretty much tar and feathering a game. If a video game gets a 7, it is awful. It is really bad. Which is C rating, not too bad, but from gamers' perspective, it's awful. Honestly, and I think a 7 is pretty bad. It's bad rating. I don't think this game is a 7 bad. Again, I don't know. I never played it. And neither did these people who 17,000 of which destroyed this poor woman. Again, she made very bad remarks here and there. So some of them, I would feel like if I was, see, the rating currently of this review is like maybe a 2 out of 10, right? A 2 out of 10 review, right? That's what the community, the YouTube community, the loving YouTube community gave this review, is a 2 out of 10. I will give this lady, oh man, she did make some bad fucking points. So she spoiled the game a little bit. Again, other reviewers have mentioned that Johnny Silverhands is dead, but she mentioned who killed him, which I think is a little pushing it forward. Rushes through story. She rushes through the story, and then it's too realistic for her. She takes it personally. Complains about the grind, which is not a problem because then she says to beat the grind you need to do side quests, which she praises the side quests. This is not a problem for her. Aim assist on PC. That's a kick in the balls for everybody. To be something newer and innovative with it. Yeah, that's the thing. I was honestly, when I first saw the gameplay and when they were talking about it, even in the E3 trailers, I was hoping it would be like Deus Ex, but like on steroids. Like some game mechanics that you've never seen. But like hacking, you know, we've seen in many games. You've seen in fucking Watch Dogs. You've seen in Hitman. You've seen in... It's hacking. Countless of games you've seen it. Looking through cameras. Again, I've seen it through Watch Dogs. Bullets that track people. Borderlands does that, I'm pretty sure. What's the game? What's the game with the jumping fucking robots? Titanfall. Titanfall has guns that track. From the gameplay, I have not seen any features that make this game unique or have anything really cool. I think this game relies on its story a lot and its side quests a lot more than introducing new game mechanics. And I think you're right, Thorben. I think this is a very big lost opportunity for the game, for CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk to, you know, they could have created something new, something completely innovative. And from what the gameplay I've seen, I have not seen anybody mention anything that was like, wow, this is a new mechanic we've never seen, you know? Yeah. Complains about the deadline for work, this lady. Why is this an issue? And yeah, she trashes the game as a result. She's like, yeah, I needed to rush through the game so I couldn't do much other stuff because it would have taken too long. And she phrases it in a negative way. Crafting, she insults, she doesn't use crafting. Which maybe she didn't need to, but I'm sure in a harder difficulty you might need to. You might be forced to, almost. In-game ads are bad. This is ridiculous. Bad political take, and in-game ads are bad. She just went on a political tangent, made no sense, and she was contradictory even in her political tangents. She was like, because you could tell by her voice, she's very like pro-trans rights, which is fantastic. You know, no problem with trans people. But then all of a sudden she's like, oh, they're over-sexualized, and it's like, hold on. If you want equality for trans people, you're gonna treat them the same as you do everybody else in that universe, which they do with they over-sexualize men, they over-sexualize women. They're gonna over-sexualize trans people. There's no problem with that. I think her picking on that is honestly politically stupid from her part. Too much focus on minutia. She picks on details. Ads would be an issue, and dismisses game mechanics and features like crafting. Yeah, so this is a bad review. I agree. I don't agree with the community that is that bad. That it's a 2 out of 10 bad. But I would if I was to give this GameSpot review, I would give it a 5 out of 10 as a review. And there you go. That was Rokashi's review of Cyberpunk 2077. There you go.